Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 11th episode of WIP FM 113.0, organized by IEEE Power and Energy Society Young Professionals Women in Power. This is a monthly talk show intended to introduce eminent leaders and experts from the power and energy sector, and also young professionals, and from the various opportunities in this field to give you the inspiration, encouragement, and motivation towards achieving your dream and ways to sustain your passion. Today, we have a very special person joining us, a young, vibrant engineer from Minnesota. I can still call you young. A prolific volunteer who has received the Presidential Volunteer Service Award, who was a Don Shipper Community Leadership Award finalist, a board member for Duluth's League of Women Voters. Professionally, she's working as a grid connection specialist at Enel Green Power North America. It's my pleasure to welcome Katherine Rasley. I'm so happy to meet you again. Welcome to the Stock Show.
Very excited to be here. Very excited to be here.
Great. So, Catherine, who knows you better than you? I did give an introduction, but I don't think it's sufficient for people to know you, who you are, where you come from. So, would you mind giving a brief introduction about yourself, touching upon your educational and cultural background?
Yes, and I will work to be brief. I have had more of a non-linear path, so I always feel like my stories of how did I get here get a little long. So we're going to work on being brief. I grew up like she mentioned. I'm from Minnesota, which is a state in northern United States, close to Canada. So I grew up about 100 miles from the Canadian border on a farm that was originally homesteaded by my great grandfather that my father inherited. And it is more of like a hobby farm where my dad didn't, we did not live off of the farm exclusively. We also had to work outside of the home, but that's definitely, I think, the thing that I always identify myself with the most is having been somebody who grew up on a farm in the country. Um, we had sheep and chickens and gardens and stuff like that. So it's something that I've always really enjoyed. Um, I'm going to focus on my engineering background. So I went to college and graduated from Mankato State or Minnesota State University, Mankato. And I went through their Iron Range engineering program. I got my bachelor's of science in engineering degree with an electrical emphasis. And at that time, I did an undergraduate research thesis in hybrid renewable power design utilizing pump storage batteries. And I will could go and talk about that all day, but I will not. And then after that, I worked 5.5 years in a fully integrated utility, so one that did generation all the way through distribution, that served again the northeastern Minnesota region. And I moved to Duluth, which is a really beautiful, that's on Lake Superior. So it's a really beautiful city on the shores of Lake Superior, where I worked as a SCADA and control engineer. Started off with that, and I worked and did quite a few other little side tasks while in that role, and eventually moved into substation maintenance, where I worked on developing a more preventative maintenance asset management program versus a time-based maintenance program. And but I was, after, like I said, as I was doing that, I realized that that could be my whole career. I could get into that, and it's really exciting and interesting, but I still had this huge passion for renewables from when I was in college. And December of last year.
Great. When you said you grew up in a farm, this reminded me of a cartoon. I think it's a Japanese cartoon named Heidi, a girl who
Ah,
lives with her grandfather on top of mountains, and it's a very
yes,
beautiful cartoon.
I bet. Yeah, I think it's based on a book, but yes, it's a fun way of life. It's different and unique. So
Yeah, when you said about that, it just struck my head. That was like
yes,
one of my favorite childhood cartoons.
yes. Oh, that's sweet.
Uh, so, uh, Catherine, so what was the motivation behind choosing this particular electrical subject? So, previously, if you have
Yeah,
seen, we have not heard or seen much of girls entering into the electrical field. But what was that
yeah.
striking factor?
Yes. So again, this will be the non-linear path. So I actually started off before I went back to engineering school. I was working for and running a water research lab um, on a research study they were doing studying waters in northeastern Minnesota watersheds. And in order to continue that type of work, I needed to get a degree. And I Googled, like, I just looked what degrees you needed. And one of them was engineering. And we had this really interesting program not that far from where my family was. His family is important to me. So I wanted to be closer to them than having to move maybe to a different state or something. So that's what kind of started me in engineering. I took Again, I had some previous credits. So when I started the program, I was able to take some of my classes out of order. And so my first physics course was in electronics and electricity. And it was very hands-on. This program that I was in was very hands-on. You did projects and experiments based on all your coursework, which I think was really played to my way of learning, where I'm really hands-on, and when I do something, like, I can fully understand it. So I think that's really what sparked me, like, something where I didn't really know anything about, like, I hadn't really thought about being in electricity before that course. I had a really encouraging teacher, and again, having those opportunities to really do these deep dives, designing my own circuits and building them and seeing what they could do. I built we had a again for one of my projects, I learned how to build a speaker, and I was like, oh my gosh, it just seems like magic. Like, I attached it to the radio and sound came out of this paper cup that I'm was so cool. And then, like, it just felt like magic. And that's when I really started to love that as a possible field. I still wasn't exactly sure because, like I said, I came in thinking I knew what I wanted to do with, like, water resource engineering. So I continued to go through different courses. One of my first projects when I became a junior was doing, like, it was a feasibility study for a library who was looking to do. They have a heat exchanger that used waste heat from a paper plant, and they wanted to in the winter, to because I live, again, Minnesota, lots of snow. They used that waste heat, put it in the heat exchanger, and it melted the snow and preheated the library and really reduced the cost. So they wanted to see if they could do something similar, using river water next door in the summer to reduce their heating costs. So I was looking at that part of the feasibility study, but because I had this interest in electricity, when they had a couple portions where they wanted to study the solar panels and wind turbines that had been donated to the library, and what was the feasibility of utilizing them, I also worked on that. And that's when I started to really be like, renewables are right up my alley because I am someone who's always been sustainability minded. I started, like, an environmental club when I was young and stuff like that. So um it was just, again, just kind of these little things that happen in your path that really bring you energy and excitement, and I think that helps direct you towards maybe what you want to do. So then when it got to be, again, I continued to take hydrology classes, and I learned about pump storage hydropower. So I'm going to go on a little tangent. If you haven't heard of that, it is when you have a higher reservoir and a lower reservoir of water, and you can use a pump and generator back and forth to either, when you have excess electricity, this is the typical use, is that you can use it as like a natural battery, where if you have excess energy, where, in the grid, sometimes at night, we're not using all the electricity that we produce, and it can be less efficient to bring down our generators offline to meet the grid needs. So instead, you can use that excess, and you can run a pump, and you can move water from the lower reservoir to the upper reservoir to gain potential energy. And then in periods of peak, like right when everybody's coming home from work, or everybody wakes up in the morning, then you can reverse the process and run the water from the higher reservoir to the lower reservoir, generating electricity and putting that back on the grid. So like I said, I learned about that, and I was my college, Iron Range Engineering, is located in an area of the country where we do a lot of, and has been mining for over 100 years, and they have these large abandoned mine pit lakes, legacy mine pit lakes, where it's just a big hole that eventually the groundwater fills up. And so we had all these reservoirs that are really beautiful, and I thought, well, maybe we could utilize these in a way to support renewables.
Mm.
So that was what I started my thesis on my senior year, and that's like I just dove into that. I was again the beauty of the program was I could really do a lot of self-directed learning, and so I found that I was interested in this topic, and I just dove in and I interviewed people and I took courses on solar and I took courses on wind. I learned about hydroelectricity and I how do we model these systems and tried to kind of just learn all kinds of things. That was my first semester my senior year. I also was fortunate to apply for lots of opportunities to present the research, and was accepted going in, but those would be into the spring semester my senior year. And as I was getting ready to do that, the program wanted to make sure that I continued to push myself to learn. So instead of just continuing on my thesis, they pushed me to take on a and facilitate a group of 5 other students who would also work on that research project. But so that was like a different role, right? Now I had to take these groups of students, help them with courses that they needed to take in renewables and pumping and all the different things that were interesting to them based on that topic, as we worked as a group to work on the modeling of
Mm.
that system. And so I at that time that allowed me to both work on that managing that group and leading those students through their educational process, which is part of all this thing that I love is mentoring. So I do that. That's what I do most of my volunteering doing. That led to some of those things that you mentioned, that awards that I've won. Um, and then also getting the opportunity to present at my state capitol, at my university, at the National Undergraduate Research Symposium, and the State College Symposium. So it was great. I again just after that year just was so in love with the industry and overall the power industry. There's so many opportunities. I am passionate about grid modernization, so like all the different things that are going on, it's like a renaissance. Things
Mm.
like everything's been similar to how things started in like Tesla versus Edison, which is another thing that I get really nerdy about. But but now it's like we're just reinventing so many things that were
Mm.
traditionally always kind of designed a certain way. We're rethinking things outside of the box. So um, that was where how I got involved in electricity, and I just couldn't like turn away. It really, like I said, it's so exciting, and there's so many different things you can do with
Exactly, and I can feel that excitement in your words.
it.
And it's rarely that girls feel enthusiastic about electricity or this power and energy sector. You find very less number of girls in this sector. Even those who have joined this particular sector, they just drop off after a few years. Like either they are not getting interest in this, or they may not be getting the right opportunities. But it also
Yes.
matters on how you deal with the different situations. So,
I think that's definitely it, right? There are a lot,
mm,
like I made it seem like everything was open to me. I never, but there was a lot of things I had to really fight for. Um,
true.
and because I was passionate, that helped drive me to get over to push myself and to reach out to strangers. IEEE has been such a great opportunity because it's a community of people who are kind of like-minded. That I found that to be the place where I can
Mm,
find people that are also interested in things I'm interested in, and they're also all very helpful. Like you know
mm,
I've talked to like I went to a conference and I got to like meet the president of IEEE, and I nerded out, and like he would have he did not really he does he's just a normal person, and he offers gives you his card and says, well, reach out to me if you have any questions about X, Y, and Z, or so when you find different people, I find that they're always answering the phone, willing to have calls, willing to answer questions, sharing resources, and that can really help you get where you want to go. But
yeah,
also,
I
I
totally agree.
think, yeah, just finding like I think women and girls actually have a lot of like we built the first computers. We women were the people that hardwired the first computer cards when that was
Mm,
the thing. When you actually had to wire them, they were some of the first programmers. Like if you've seen Hidden Figures, right? This is in us. It's and we've kind of um, received a lot of messages that it's not for us, and I think that can make it less appealing, but we have tons of skills. Like I always felt like when it came to building circuits, I had done a lot of crafting when I did beading, and I had to follow patterns, crocheting, all these
mm,
things that I've done in my past that are fun hobbies, they actually lead to a lot of skills that are really useful in design and
Mm,
those types of things. Drawing schematics, all that type of stuff uses a lot of creativity. So I do think that it's just connecting those two dots, and finding roles and positions that are meaningful for you. Like, I am one another thing that I really enjoy about the power industry is I get to feel like I'm really contributing to my community, because my community uses electricity, my hospital uses electricity, right? My family does it. It's something that people understand and use, and you can be such a positive influence in. And I know that that's really important to women and girls, and a lot of times that's, I think, where they want, that's what they want, and they might go into a different
mm,
field because they want to go into a lot of women will go, who are interested in science, might go into nursing, and
mm,
and that's great. There's nothing wrong with it, but that is driven by this desire to help others in their community, and there's
mm.
many ways to do that. And so if you can get to feel that, I think in a more tangible way, you can feel more satisfied in your career.
Yeah, and I think we can also be proud, thinking that we are also contributing back to the society in some or the other way.
Yes.
Because
Yes,
without
yes.
electricity, there is no world now.
Yeah, exactly. We wouldn't have this conversation, right? If my
True.
electricity goes out, we're done. So, yeah.
It's gonna be freeze or like complete blackout.
Yes, exactly.
So you mentioned you've been part of IEEE, and IEEE did play a quite significant role in your career. So how was your entry to IEEE, and how does that actually help you in your career?
Yes. Oh, IEEE is something that's really been a big part of my professional career and shaping who I am as an engineer at this point. Learned about it first from that original electrical class. That professor talked about this thing, IEEE, and I think I didn't even really know that it was like IEEE.
Oh, okay.
I learned that right away. But we had started like is we started I started a club at my university, at my campus, not my university, but my campus, and again, it was just this group of like-minded individuals because we didn't have a lot of electrical students in the program.
Mm,
Again, it's self-directed, so a lot of students in the program are mechanical or whatever. So having a
mm,
subset of electrical students who could come together and say, we would like to have these types of classes, or we want to build these types of activities, that things that we're interested in having it just empowered you to do that. And it gave you some kind of some clout. Like IEEE is in one of the longest running um, worldwide organizations that does support its students, and there's resources available by being a member, that you can utilize. It's less and as a student, it's very inexpensive, so that's really helpful too. So I started
mm,
off as a student. It gave me opportunities. I held an event at our campus, so we got to have members from the community come to our campus and have lunch with us, and it was all pretty intimate. Like, again, it's less than a dozen students, less than a dozen professionals coming together. And so you're sitting at a table and you're really discussing things. And that is really the power, that powerful network building, where
mm,
now you know someone who can connect you, or that you run into again. Because it is a smaller, the power, you find out like engineering is kind of a small knit profession. You may not want to burn bridges as a young professional because you'll probably run into people again. And then electrical is even smaller, and power is even smaller, and renewables is even smaller. So, having that power of networking is really powerful. After
mm,
I graduated, I decided I wanted to join our section. Um, and I was able to do a lot of different roles within the section. So I started as a membership chair, and if I wanted to ask people to be members, I wanted to make sure we had good meetings. So I also became a professional activities chair, and was able to come up like. So then again, it's so much empowering of me, where I could say, I'm really interested in this business we have. I'm going to see if we can have a tour, or this is someone I've always wanted to hear speak. So I'm going to ask them if they'll speak at one of our events. And so it really gave me the opportunity to kind of be a catalyst within the group,
mm,
within my community, and within my career. There's also, again, there's programs within IEEE. So as an officer, I joined the VOLT program, which I think is volunteer leadership training, which is kind of a pretty intense course where you sign up and you can go to online classes that teach you about how to be how to utilize a lot of the IEEE has so many resources. It's almost too many to comprehend. You could a person couldn't use them all themselves because they're it's also based on all the different kinds of electrical engineering things that are out there. So there's all kinds of different groups and stuff. But it taught us about that, and then we worked on a team to come up with a group project. This was before COVID, so doing a virtual team was a much newer concept, and I ended up being on kind of the leftover. So most people were grouped with people in their time zone, and I kind of was like the leftover United States person. So I was with someone from Russia who worked sometimes in the United States. But he was, it was his second language, and he traveled a lot for work. And then someone from Mexico, someone from Colombia, and Venezuela, and yeah, so there was like several languages, first languages spoken on our group, and different time zones, and different everything was in English, which was lucky for me because I was not bilingual like they were. So but bringing that team together, learning how to just even come up and communicate effectively, that was a really awesome opportunity that not very many people get to have, that IEEE gave me. I started a women in engineering group within my section, and that was really to just make sure that we had, one, which doesn't seem like a lot, but for us was huge because I looked, we've been a section for over 100 years, and I was only the second female that I could find, only the second officer ever that was a female in our group. So it was a kind of a, a way of changing the way that people were thinking. But let's have a woman in our that's an electrical in our community come and speak at our event, or things like that. I was able to build my own network.
Change maker.
I tried, and I was able to go to the International Leadership Conference. I got the scholarship to volunteer there and meet a whole bunch of us, again, awesome women and people, and eventually became chair. I have not been an officer after that, but since the 2020, some personal things came up, but I'm still able to, do a lot of things with the people that I know online, and support people. Like I said, there's lots of awesome learning opportunities and resources available. So I think, again, though, the power is that being able to have this community of people that you can reach out to as resources. A person from IEEE came and talked to my company, and I'll be honest, the people that went to that learning session were not very engaged. It wasn't about IEEE, but he's it's John McDonald. I think everybody may know who he is because
Yeah,
he's
we
done
know.
so much. And he came and he spoke at my company, and people weren't that engaged. And I just reached out to him afterwards, and he's like, he did several phone calls with me to talk me through and give me a presentation on how to build your career as a young, I had only been working in industry for like a year and a half. And for him to do that, it was so powerful and gave me confidence and encouragement that I needed at that time to continue to be the driver of what I wanted to do in my career.
It's good to have such person who can support you, and definitely I also agree with what you said, and IEEE is a perfect community where you can find a good mentor, a good friend. So whoever you can reach out to will definitely give you that support you need in your career and also in your personal life.
Yeah, yes. I
I
like I
found
said, I
many
encourage
opportunities
people
after
to reach
college.
out to me and on LinkedIn or whatever, and don't feel please take up that opportunity. I'd love to return the favor.
Same here.
Yeah.
And apart from IEEE, you're also part of the organization Women in Renewable Industries and Sustainable Energy. We can call it in short as RISE. So, how was your involvement in RISE, and how was it different from IEEE?
Yeah, so I had like kind of dabbled in Rise. I say where they allow you to the Rise, WRISE, like you can join and without having to pay a membership and still go to some of the events that they do or webinars that they put on, and just learn more and meet more women in the renewable industry and sustainable energy industry. So I'd been doing that probably since I was a student, right? When I found it when I was doing my research project and had been doing that. And when I made the decision, like I said, that I think I was like, I was going to be disappointed if I didn't try to do the renewable industry. At least know if give it a shot and look into it and try for positions. And so I, went in and I got the actual membership. It's very achievable. It's not a large membership fee. And then they have a small mentoring program. So it was a small group mentoring program where I've been partnered with four other women, um, either interested or also in the industry, and then we meet monthly, and they had like a whole curriculum, so we've done it for over 7 months. So I started that just before I actually I wasn't even in the renewable industry when I started that program, and they were like, that's okay, it's not a big deal.
It's like, you
And
know.
so that, I think, yeah, it's the encouragement. I could learn from people and all the different things that people do within the renewable industry. It's not necessarily, it's a lot of, I think one was an engineer, and one was, I think her profession, she like graduated with geology, but she does more like community relations, and one is finance, which is fascinating. Um, and behind above my head for sure, all the things that she does within the industry. So it's again just building those communities, allowing it to do that, and another network that you can reach out to that's also very supportive. Lots of opportunities within Rerise. I could go, there's conferences and stuff as well. I actually am involved in a ton of organizations. I tend to be, like I said, I am more of one of those joiners. So I, do a lot of different things, but that one has really, I think, been part of ushering me into the industry.
I can see it as a very supportive group that you're part of.
Yes, yes, it's been great.
Great. So, Catherine, at NL, since your designation says grid connection specialist, so what kind of different jobs are you part of?
Yeah. So yes, so the grid connection specialist is such a neat role because it allows you to work across a lot. It's kind of more of a project management role within that really focuses on the interconnection process, and this is in the across North America and Canada. So and really what that means is I'm working across business development who may select a project and get a interconnection agreement in place with one of the ISOs, which is independent system operator. So in the United States, our grid is meant to be open for all, and that happens through this process called the independent system operator. So regionally, that will be it's non-government owned, it's not, it can't, it's non-profit, so it's not going to, you can't give it money and then it will definitely let you just connect to the grid, right? You have to go through the same process as everyone else, which I think is really cool and important. But each region has their own set of standards and rules in order to interconnect, and contracts and deliverables. Oh, it can be quite complicated to know them all and to keep track of them all, and make sure that you're doing that correctly. So again, business development all the way through the commercial office, who may be trying to sell power purchase agreements, or making sure that we're registered in the marketplace, and all that more financial stuff. There's investor relations. Their investors may want to know what's going on with these projects, so that they are making sure that they're a good investment. We work with the engineering and all the engineering groups to actually build this project, through handover to O&M. So you get to work with a lot of different working groups. And some of the projects that I'm doing, I have a really neat wind project up in Alberta with ASO is the independent system operator there. I think that's been a really fun opportunity. And again, anytime you work with different regions of people, there's different ways of operating, different ways of communicating, different requirements, and like the Canadian government and how they operate is different than the United States, right? So that's one of why I think it's one of my favorites. But I'm also doing a wind project in Illinois and some solar projects in Texas. So those are the projects that I'm currently, well, involved in. And then there's actually been some changes where my department used to be two people and now it's only me. Somebody moved on, and so now I'm actually trying to figure out all the rest of the projects. So there's even more projects actually now across the
It's kind
United
of
States.
one man army.
In Oklahoma, yeah, it's yeah. So I'm getting you accustomed to that as well. So yeah, it's been interesting and fun and challenging, to say the least.
Okay, talking about these challenges, you also mentioned before that you had to go through a lot of tough times. And have you had any kind of, like, you can say, major challenges in your early career? So, if so, how did you overcome them?
Yeah, well, I would say, one of the things that was difficult in my career is I am kind of my own my own person, um, and that I appreciate that about myself. But it does, it may. There was a click in in my original working group, and so it could be really hard to feel like you fit in the group. Um,
Mm,
Overall, though, I felt like I had found a good cultural fit within my company, just not necessarily like, I wasn't getting asked to lunch with everyone. I didn't know how to play golf. I didn't realize that that would be such an important piece to my early career, was that I should have learned to play golf. Things like that. Those kinds of things can be challenges that, um, they're not major challenges, but they can be things that I think people definitely can face when they're starting off in their early career, that
mm,
can make you question if this is a right fit for you or whatever. And as I said, realizing that my overall company, was a good fit for me, finding people within my company, I think really helped. And finding my own way as an engineer. I grew up in more blue collar family. So I actually grew up hearing how engineers were the worst because they always thought they knew everything and they never listened to people that actually did the work. So I tried to be different, and I really worked a lot with our technicians. I feel like they are, as a design engineer, they were my customer, and they helped me.
mm,
I feel that they really helped me become better because I could get feedback. Like,
mm,
here's my design. I'm going to go out, watch you put it in, and tell me what I did wrong. Oh, yeah, don't put, yeah, yes, this is a panel. And yes, there's room in that corner down there by the floor. But a grown man who was our technician has to lay on his belly to install that. Is that the best design? Is there better ways to do this, right? Safer ways to do this. And having that opportunity to be out in the field and learn from that, I always felt like was great. So I would say that there was challenges, like I said, feeling like I belonged sometimes, and I found people that I did belong with,
mm.
and IEEE was part of that. I started a women's resource group. So I say that because there's lots of ways maybe you might not feel like you belong with this a small group that you work with, but there is a community out there for you, and you can find it, like I said, through IEEE, through ReRise, all types of these organizations, or start your own. My new company, now has five employee resource groups. So there's all kinds of ways for people to connect and build that community of support that I think really helps you if you're kind of like an other in the group. So that can be one thing. Also, I think I got a lot of no's. I tend to be I'm very um I like to raise my hand. I like to take opportunities. I like to keep driving myself forward. And I think sometimes that was a little like,
I think
I
getting
think
that
that it
confidence
was
in
something
you
that,
might be a
yeah,
challenge.
yeah, that people sometimes they think that, I don't always get yes. I had to kind of fight for certain things.
Mm,
And some of those no's, I think, looking back, I say, well, that was probably for the best. But taking that and focus, so an example, there was a program called Leadership Duluth, Leadership, my community, Leadership Duluth, that they really encouraged a lot of people to, like, they thought, well, if you want to develop your leadership skills, it's a great profession, this opportunity to give back to your community. So I filled out the application and I applied, and it was like, well, you haven't, even though there's no rule, we don't feel like you've worked here long enough. We don't know if it'll be a good fit. So it was a no. And that was very hurtful to me. And I was very disappointed. But what I wanted, I could get in other ways. So what I wanted was to feel like I was giving back to my community and to build my leadership skills. And then I said, okay, what are the other ways I can do that? So there was a way to join, to just take things like, if there's a path that you have that you necessarily can't go down. Like you can't get permission to go down. It's like just being my own director. So what are things that I don't need this is probably, I hope this is good advice, but I don't need permission to be involved in, Toastmasters, and that can help me develop my communication skills. I, can, use my time to volunteer in my community in these other ways. I did junior achievements and taught youth about civics. I've done different outreach events. Like I said, through IEEE, I was able to do a lot of the same tasks to meet the same goal. And so I think that's another thing is if there's things that if you're someone who's going towards a I want to be XYZ role, then and you hear no, then you just recalibrate and figure out how do you meet the like if there's the path that this is how I get to A to B, and I just have to follow this path. And if I get no, I know what to work on to stay on that path. That's fine. But for me, a lot of times I just try to move in the right direction. What type of engineer, what type of professional, what type of person do I want to be? And so as I'm moving towards that, when I hit a roadblock, I can say, oh, okay, this isn't going to work. I can either keep pushing through this. Is this something worth fighting for? And I've done that, definitely done that. Or is this something worth detouring around? I can still move forward towards what I want to be, what I want to do, but I'm just going to take a different path. So that's why I said I'm not really an A to B person, because a lot of times I come up against something and I've just, really realized that there's more than one way to get to where I want to be. So now I'm going to move over and I'm going to take this path instead.
I think
Can
we could be
answer the question?
civil engineers. Yeah.
Okay.
Uh, when you said about finding the path, it actually reminded me of the wind farm construction, where usually all of the wind farms are at remote locations, right, where they don't have a path. So, but then we
Yes.
don't stop. We build a path and get it constructed. So I think we can also follow the same motto.
Exactly.
We
Yeah.
don't
And
have
then
a
these
path,
little things that
find
you
it.
find along the way where you thought you had your plan, right? That happens all the time
Ah,
in construction. And then you find out,
yes.
ooh, that Alta survey came back bad. And now, or there's for here, there's like a wetland that we need to move around, or even we couldn't get a permit or whatever. And so, how do we creatively continue to meet our goal
Hmm,
and
exactly.
do it in the best possible way? So.
Great.
Way to
So when you,
put connect the dots. I love it.
I enjoy it. So when you talk about these challenges, do you think these are the kind of some of the barriers for women entering into the power and energy sector?
I mean, I think that can be part of it. I mean, each person has their own unique set of challenges. But I do, I guess. So I have having. So as I said, as a student, I started a Society of Women Engineers group, and in there, and one of the first things I learned as an undergraduate, I went to a really great webinar about um, gender stereotypes and how they can sort of hold back women, and part of that was also how women can be their own worst enemy sometimes. And so it was all about me deciding it's important for me to encourage and empower women and minorities and others that may be outsiders within my my profession. That is something that I determined long ago that I wanted to be a part of. And but because of that, and because of participating in educational opportunities around that topic and participating in discussions and educating others, I've observed a lot of. And so what I would say is makes what I see and observed over time, is that there are a lot of just kind of crappy things you have to overcome sometimes that can take a lot of your energy. So it could be a bad manager that doesn't give you opportunities. That I would say that's probably a really big one, or feeling that you know um, whatever you have in your life that you're trying to balance, if you're maybe if you have caregiver responsibilities, that it can also be a really big one, where you want to make sure you have time for your family and or your parents or whomever you may have to take care of. That can be another thing is finding that balance. So not always being willing to put your hand up because you're like, well, I don't know, and not necessarily being confident in yourself and giving yourself the same daring that a lot of our male counterparts may have. They always, one of the really helpful statistics is to remember is that men will often put their hand up and put themselves out for a job if they have at 80% as low as 40% of the qualifications identified in the job description, where women will always wait, almost always wait till they have 100%, maybe
Just
110%. And then may even apologize during this during the interview because they probably shouldn't have applied, right? And I mean it's super hard to break those that in that way of thinking. And but to by having that knowledge, I think it can push us to push ourselves, and having the community to push us to help us see ourselves. I have some really good friends who encourage, like, no, you are really good at, and not just girlfriends, but that is a large part of it. I have other people in my life who are very supportive and help me to see my own value and my own strengths, and encourage me to put myself out there when it's kind of something where I'm a little scared for. And so I think that's just such a powerful and important piece that we don't think about investing in for ourselves and our careers is that that there are, again, I'm kind of going on a tangent here. Getting back to the thing, what do women have that can make it hard? And I think it's just realizing what you're capable of, feeling confident, putting yourself out there, getting the opportunities, speaking up. um, One of the things I would give everybody who's starting out in their career advice on is to start having the tough conversations right away. Beginning of my career, I did not talk about money because I thought, ooh, you know, but that was still important to me. It was important to me to be paid equally. That's it. I mean, I'm not saying I'm out there to make $1 million. That wasn't what drives me with money. And I think that's part of the problem is like we've been in my society, we're brought out to that money is this taboo topic that we shouldn't talk about, but yet it's still important. It's a big piece of why we work. Like
exactly.
how many people would work if
Nobody
they didn't
works
need
for
money?
free.
Not yes, you know what I mean? So you have to be able to have those discussions. Talking about where you want to go. It is kind of a rough balance because what if you're in a position and it's not necessarily this is not what I want to do with my life? How do you tell them I'm happy to have my position, but I still want to work towards these other things and continue to advocate? And also even say, um, this is this isn't what I want to do. I've asked for these opportunities. I don't feel like I'm getting them. I'm, thinking about leaving if we don't start moving in that direction. Having those discussions earlier than when you have to have them, it makes it so much better. If you start off your relationship with whomever is helping, who has the power in your career, and saying, this is, what I'm doing now. This is what I'm building towards. This is what I would like to see. What's what I feel like support is. This is what's important to me in terms of benefits or money or priorities. Like if again, if it's a family and you say, and I don't, it's more important to me that I have flexible scheduling, or that it's really important that when my kid is sick I can take all these things. Having those conversations, being upfront, then when you need to have those conversations, you've already kind of, you know people are prepared for them, they've thought about them, they're not going to be reactive in those discussions. So I just also encourage people to do that because I think that can that can be a big piece of why women become disempowered in their job and start being unhappy, is because they aren't getting those opportunities. But have they asked for them? They not always have. Sometimes they have, and then when you have asked and nothing's changing, you need to come back and have continue, talk about, okay, what am I going to do about that? Because you are that, I mean, it's nobody should be unhappy. And I think that's why people drop out. I had gotten unhappy in my job, and like, because I was always, when I first started and I was a student, I was like, why would women ever drop, I'm never going to do. And then I got to a place where I really, like, every day I got to be just really a hard challenge that it didn't need to be. And it wasn't about necessarily always the work. It was about all the other junk that happens at work. that drains you.
It's kind
And
of a late realization that
yeah, that can
triggers
happen.
all the problem. Yeah.
Yeah, and so just pushing people to realize that there's other things out there,
Mm,
and I think that's a big piece too. Is always, even if you're not really looking to change jobs, interview, see what's else out there, see what other people think you're worth. Start
mm,
talking about your future with strangers that even do jobs that you're not really like 100% sure you want. That you're like, well, maybe, and because then what do you have to lose in this discussion? And you might find you learn so much. You learn so much, and um, I think I had more opportunities. I've said no to a ton of opportunities, but they still really helped me realize what I wanted, where I was
mm,
going, what I needed to ask for, and then I could take, the job that I had to the next level, because now through that, through understanding, I was able to have the important discussions I needed to have. So hopefully
mm,
that answered the question. But just don't be you can be happy in your job, and finding a place that's a good fit for you.
mm,
There's lots of opportunities out there, and your first opportunity may not be the right one. Sometimes the thing
mm.
you learn from a job is that you never want to do that job again. I had an internship and it was
Learn from the
manufacturing,
mistakes.
and I was like, yeah, this is what I don't want this. I want to choose something different. And so I'm, spend my time finding that. So
Yeah, you don't
I
always
can
get
say,
to
and again,
learn
saying
what
that
to
from a
do.
point of privilege where sometimes you just need a job and then take that job, but don't be
Mm.
afraid to keep looking as you're in the job
Mm.
that you need to have to make ends meet. And I interrupted you, sorry.
I don't know, no worries. You mentioned about all of these opportunities, and especially with more of renewable penetration, and that too happening on a very rapid scale. So, how does this opportunity for grid modernization change? Um, what are the various opportunities involved?
Yes. Oh, yeah. There's tons of really cool opportunities, and because things are growing, and because I think people are starting to realize, like, our economy plays such a big role right now.
Mm.
Where I will say one of the reasons that I had a hard time breaking into the renewable industry is when I started, they wanted you to have 5 years experience. Well, nobody starts with 5 years of experience, right? You know,
I had the same question.
yeah, and so that can be really challenging. And so then, you find ways to have relevant projects that you can relate to it. So I worked on
Mm,
an integrated distribution plan for my company, which is a regulatory filing. And that was all about how we were going to modernize at a grid level. And parts of that included our solar farms and, it did distributed generation, all these cool things. So that was a way where I could work towards and on skills and things I cared about within my current role. So that would be, one of the things. But right now, I think that they need bodies and things are growing and people are investing in these things. And so there are these opportunities to get in the field. So if you're thinking about renewables, it's a great time to get in the field just because there are more chances to get in the field. And once it's like anything, once you're in the field, you've got experience in the field. It doesn't
mm,
matter. I mean, we had somebody recently who was a planner in our company, but he had an engineering degree and now he's a project engineer. So, it you don't necessarily if like you can break into something, um,
mm,
and then figure out while you're in the group where you want to head within that group, right? So that would be another thing is just, if there are opportunities and you're really interested and passionate in this field, break into the field, learn more about it from inside, and then now that you're inside, that'll make it so much easier to kind of move towards maybe a specific thing. Where if you want to, if you can't get into that project engineer role that you want right away because you don't have renewable experience, don't let that stop you if you can't get it. As I said, always just find a detour around so you can still get to what you want. Maybe that's my message. But other things too is that there's so many new parts within the field. So there's like I said, as an engineer, you can even just the people I work with. Engineers work in business development, so developing,
mm,
citing new projects. That's all kinds of different types of engineering. But there's that. There's studies. There's working for, like I said, the ISO. So you're reviewing
mm,
people's studies and being more project management. There's uh, the actual just design. There's consulting. There's like the different types of design. There's all there's so much. Um, and then there's operation and maintenance, substation maintenance.
Mm.
That's this huge field now. Data is huge. So that was part of the substation maintenance role. Is when I took that on, it was the department hadn't really been a department for over 5 years, and in 5 years the technology advancements that we have when it comes in many ways have changed so much, and none of the people that were originally there were still around to help you navigate that, but to build um like even a what do you call a database was very challenging
Mm.
with the data we had originally collected, because nobody thought about algorithms, nobody thought about search fields, people just kind of put things in, they didn't really standardize, so they now we have all this data, but it's not in a way that computers think about data. And so understanding data and how to use data and how to build data sets, that is a huge opportunity, not just in our industry but in all types of industries. But because data has so much power and we're finally able to utilize it, understand it, crunch it, yeah, and there's research and development, so there's just, I mean, I am not gotten to the bottom of this well. I am on the surface, and I feel like I've talked for quite a while, so I will wrap it up. But tons of opportunities and tons of different ways um,
Yeah.
to be a part of the industry at the moment.
Yeah, but that was a really good lengthy list, I would say. Because
Thank
people
you.
actually don't know, when they just think about power and energy, they only have this peripheral or a basic understanding of what the sector is, and they don't realize that within that sector there are minute groups wherein they can be part of, wherein they can contribute
Yes,
a lot.
yes,
So
yeah. Like
that
I
is
said,
something which it's
we
hard
all
to.
have our superpower, right? Whatever it is for us, it's very unique. And capitalizing on that and finding your niche is
Mm,
feels so good when you feel like I'm just being myself, and this has so much value, and this is helping this group and this cause. Like for me, our my company is really driven to changing the future of energy to be more sustainable, and to
mm,
be more circular, so we're not just using something and then throwing it away. Like how can we use something and then and be creative and reuse it
mm,
again, so it's more circular than linear. And that's something, again, like I said, that's been something that's important to me my whole life, and so to be a part of that group and that mission is so
yeah.
rewarding and valuable. And I would never, I'll be honest that there were times where I didn't think that was possible. So just continuing to look for that, because it is out there for whatever it is for you.
Great, great. And definitely being in an organization where you have to deal with multiple people. Like when I say multiple people, people from different departments or even different verticals. So, how was your experience communicating or dealing with multiple stakeholders in your work? Like any kind of preparations that
Yes,
you
no,
need?
that's so good. I tend to be someone who's very results oriented. So I want to be successful and work together. And I don't need it to be my way to get there. And I think that that makes it very useful, because then you meet people where they're at. So each group has their own, like they have their own way of thinking, they have their own vocabulary, they have their own motivations, their own goals.
Mm,
Everyone is kind of different, and so you have to take that opportunity to, I think anytime you have to work with cross people is really
mm,
connect. The most effective way is to connect with the person you have to work with in some way, in a sort of meaningful way. It, take the 5 minutes to just chat with them about the weather, or if they have a cool background pick, or what they did for the weekend, because now you are kind of more, you're in a more of a collaborative mindset.
mm,
And then as you are working towards getting this information or goal, people are trying to work together instead of being combative. I've been in a lot of places where if you start your sentence, well, you didn't give me what I needed, well, guess what? That person is, they're going to fight you back. And then you're just yelling at each other in a meeting, and it wastes so much time. Where all you had to do was say, oh, and when people if somebody says that, a lot of times, just if you can just listen and be like, oh yeah, that sounds frustrating. This is what I was trying to do, or this is what this is what we need, or this is our goal. All I'm trying to do is to retrieve the goal. I'm not blaming anybody. I'm not, I don't care, honestly. We're just trying to meet this goal by this time for this reason. And a lot of times people can get on board. They want to help. I think overall, most people want to help. There are very few people that are like, I don't want to help our company be successful, because they wouldn't work there if that was their attitude, right? So I think that's it. Is just trying to build a collaborative working environment where people
Mm,
trying to help people understand what you need. Communication is huge, because a lot of times people
mm,
think they're giving you what they want and they're not. And it's not on purpose. It's just that you guys, again, everybody speaks a different language.
mm,
That is, I remember being in SCADA and realizing, like, oh my God, we have the same words, but they mean two different things depending on who's saying them. Like, communication switch is a whole different thing than a SCADA switch, and is a whole different thing than a relay switch. Like, they're the same word in the same working group, but depending on what your job is, they mean completely different boxes. And when you come to that realization, it really helps. But then it's like, oh my God, now what do we do? So then it's like, okay, I'm going to draw a picture, or we're going to come together and we're going to decide what to call this so that we can move this conversation forward. So, yeah, I think communication is huge. Relationships are huge. Patience, and I think, again, just focusing on, we're all working together towards this goal. I'm not gonna, no matter what happened, we're gonna leave that aside, because what's important is meeting this goal. And so
mm.
how can we do that together?
And especially with this virtual world, when everything has become an online meeting, it's even harder to have more
Oh,
collaboration.
yes, yes. Sometimes, yeah, pictures. Also, y- sometimes, and it's sucky and it's hard, but you just sometimes have to call people or have a
Mm,
face to face, because I have had times, items where I could write 3 weeks worth of emails. We could email every day about the same topic, or I could call you and in 2 minutes we're on the same page. And I don't know why it happens, but it does, because I think it's because instantly you can say, oh, never mind. No, you're talking, I see. I don't know why it happens, but it's magic. And so I think that's also hard for young people who are good with technology. Not necessarily all
mm,
people are. This isn't, I should have said that. But,
yeah.
some people are more comfortable with technology and they want to use that sort of that
Mm.
separated use of communication. But there's some things that's just, it's going to take so much more time and probably not be as effective. So sometimes you just gotta make the
For
call.
me, this pen and paper works. You go to
Yeah,
the board, take a pen, explain everything, and
just draw
it's
it,
done.
and then it's like,
Yeah.
yes, yeah,
Oh my god, this was so easy. Quite a
yes,
lot of times it
exactly.
has happened.
Yes, yeah, definitely. It takes, yeah. Pictures are worth 1,000 words or more.
True. And from what I have heard so far from your professional experience, the way you have done things, I can see you are a very focused person. So, and do you think a technical leadership role would suit you? Or is it going to be the people management side or pure technical? So,
Yeah. So
what
I
sort of
tend to
aspects?
want. I mean, I like working with people, but I
Hmm.
am more technical in what I want to do. I think, if that makes sense. So,
Okay,
I
that's
think
a
that's kind
combination
of,
of both.
yeah. It's, and I guess, and that's my style. There are people that are very, like, they only work with numbers, only
Hmm.
work with graphs. I am not necessarily that technical person, but I do think having both skills helps you be more of the leadership role. Because if
Hmm.
you can know everything in that graph, you know your system back to front. I've met a lot of people super intelligent that are like that, but they can't explain it to someone else, and they can't look at it from someone else. And um, you know, no matter what's right or wrong, if nobody understands it, it doesn't have power. It doesn't have the same power, right? You have to be able to
True.
utilize the information you have. You can have all the knowledge in the world, but if you don't know how to use it, it's not powerful. So I
Hmm.
do think that as a technical leader, I think it's good to have both the technical background, but learn
Hmm.
how to communicate it in a meaningful way to
Mm.
others. And there's many ways to do that, but I do think that that's kind of the key power, that's what helps you be, really
Mm.
take that to the next level. um does
So,
that make sense?
how
Yeah.
do you think should women prepare themselves in order to have this technical leadership role?
Yeah, so I do think communication is definitely key. And because unfortunately, I would think that in some cases, there's still instances where there are there are there may be different standards that women have in the technical fields, where you know where a man can say, oh yep, this is the graph, believe me, and people will, and sometimes the women need to be able to prove it. um and so you kind of need to have both chops. You need to be able to feel to present yourself confidently, like this is the
Mm.
information we have, and this is what it means, and this is why it matters, and this is what we're going to do for it. And you can argue with me, and I'm going to stand up for my group as the leader, or I'm going to stand up for whatever, whatever your role is at that time with that you're being the leader of. Uh,
Mm.
so again, yeah, so I think being yeah, having the ability to be an effective leader in challenging circumstances would probably be, kind of a superpower that I see in the technical female leaders that I
Mm.
know. And like, that's what I'm going off of. So if you are someone who is technical minded and wants to work in a technical field and be a leader within that field, I would say again, there's more than one way to be the leader. You could be the subject matter expert leader, which is different, right?
Mm.
That is then you have a specific technical question. So someone's going to come up and they're going to explain it to everybody. But then somebody comes up with a question that they don't know. Then they're going to turn to you as that subject matter expert technical leader. And then
Mm.
again, you have to be able to take what you know so well because you've done it so much and you know everything about it, but you have to be able to know it so well that you can explain it to someone who doesn't.
Okay.
I mean,
Mm.
that is again, that is where people will see our value. That's where you really can bring power to for what you know and what you understand. This is my experience. Maybe
No,
right, wrong,
but
or
I think this
please.
is super important. And as you rightly said, if you know something, you should be able to explain it to the others so that they also understand. Otherwise, there's no value to the information at all.
Yeah, nobody knows
I
that you
totally
know it.
agree.
They think, well, whatever.
Exactly.
So yeah, communication would be the key. I think for
Hmm.
to technical leadership. Um,
Hmm.
and yeah, of like one way or another, if you think, I think a lot of the leaders I think of, that is what makes them stand out, is that they can communicate and that they can do that with a lot of different kinds of people.
Hmm.
So
And I think this kind of quality, uh, you're always able to build it by being part of different groups. You mentioned there are quite a lot of research groups in NL, and you are one among the NL's Women Empower Employee Research Group as the membership chair. So, what kind of contributions, or what is your role as the membership chair for this research group?
yeah, so thank you for asking that. So yeah, it's really fun. I picked that role because it allows you to meet the most people, right? Because I have the spreadsheet with all the members, and I answer all the emails of people that want to join. So again, I just have so many more. That's why I have a lot more networking opportunities without as
Hmm.
much. Um, Necessarily I gotta, do different things. But it also allows me to, I am part of still the leadership team, where I can still help say, this is what I think, I'd like to see us talk more about, or this is what our members, I get to speak up. But I do a lot with surveys. We've sent out surveys, both of new members. We've sent
Hmm.
a couple out at the beginning, and then I review those surveys, and I can say, this is who is engaging with us. They, one of the things is they wanted to maybe do more in person, and I can say, well, that's I think that is there's value to that. But I also want to let you know that of the surveys, or of the people that we have in our group, 75% of them are remote, and they're not at
Hmm.
a location. So if you do that, that you will lose, this value here. So, it gives me an opportunity to speak out about where people are at, what's important to them. So what are they identifying as things that are they're interested in, that they want to learn about? Um, and how can I bring that up when we're talking about what we want to have our future topics about for our future meetings and our future direction. So
Mm.
there's a lot of people that are out there looking for mentorship opportunities, or looking for um, to learn more about leaders, or just and just and then being that voice for our members back to our group, and help to hopefully to help make sure that we're moving in the same direction as what the people we're serving. So, like I said, it's great because it allows me to meet and interface with all these different people. Um, I'm the one that gets to email them, so I always think that's kind of, that doesn't hurt me. But also, I still have a lot. I can take on more if I want, in terms
Mm.
of being able to speak up for them, and that's always because a group is only its members, right? Like I can have the best idea in the world. I want to have, you know, uh, a women's ice cream cooking show, and I think this is the best idea. Everybody should join this group and be a part and support this group. But if nobody else thinks that that's a great idea, like it's not going anywhere. It's not going to be a group. It could be my own thing, but it's not a group, right? This is a group. And then we need
Mm.
the power comes from the members. Like I said, similar to IEEE, the power comes from the people that are a part of
True.
that group, and helping them feel like the group belongs to them, that they're not just a part of the email chain. They get the email, they look at it, but that they interact with it, that their voice
Mm.
matters, that people are being heard, um, and it's that's important and valuable. So, yeah, that's what I do with that group. Yeah,
I can see you are having a good time or enjoying being the membership chair as well.
yes, yes, definitely.
And it's not just this research group, or you can say you have this job, you have all of the other organizations that you're part of. So what is that factor that keeps you motivated as a volunteer or as a professional in your organization? Do you have any kind of priority rules that you follow so that you can have a balance between all of these stuffs?
Yes, definitely. And I will say that that has been a lifelong thing that I struggle. I do.
Okay.
Since I've been highly involved, I realized this as I was reflecting on this question, that oh yeah, I've been someone who's balanced a lot of things since I was in elementary school, junior high, and I didn't always do that well.
Uh,
I would
highly
be
experienced.
super, yeah, so I would be super excited. I'd take on everything, and I couldn't possibly do it, and I would burn out, and then I'd have to start all over. So I have been able to learn over time, I will say. And what I have learned is it's very important to focus on what's important to you in your life, and that will be something different for everyone. I do want to always acknowledge that. For me,
Mm.
it's important, it is important for me to feel like I'm giving back. That's just I need that in my life to make me happy every day. Like if I'm not, and I also really, it's important to me to know that I am helping my family know that they are one of my priorities, and these people in my life, my friends, people that I really care about, how are they my priorities? And so it's finding ways to prioritize that. And I think, as I mentioned earlier, always focusing on who you want to be, what type of person you
Mm.
want to be, is a really good guiding light, right?
Okay.
And focusing on or what you want to achieve with something helps you make decisions with how you
Mm.
spend your time, and even being realistic with how much time you have. I know I was just at I joined the League of Women Voters. And how did I decide if I should put my hand up for that? Was
Mm.
right now, I think in the United States, to me, I've always really cared about democracy and civil rights and civics and engagement of the population for the health of and all that's been always been interesting and important to me. So that it comes from long ago. It's something that's just inside of me. And then right now, I think it's more important than ever. We're really kind of at a turning point in my mind in my country, and so wanting to be a part of helping to empower people to engage in that, because it's a nonpartisan. It's just about helping people learn more about what their role is and how they can influence. Um, anyway, so I think about all that. Okay, so this would be an opportunity to do that. It's something I'm feeling highly passionate about this time. It
Mm,
energizes me. The passion energizes me. It doesn't wear me out. So that again helps you keep driving. And then what is the requirements and what role? So I can do this in many different ways. It was also like a professional development goal. I wanted to be on a board again because I like that helps in different levels on a different lot of different ways. So it met that criteria. It had a really supportive community. Again, that's very energizing. They're super intelligent and they're challenging and they're thoughtful and kind people. So okay, the group is good in all these different ways. This is how much time is required. Can I do
mm,
that with what I'm doing now? And what will I have to give up in order to do that? And that, like, so those are kind of the thought process I go into to balancing things. I tend to be someone too, for me, what works best is to take on one or two key things at a time. So last spring it was AXO, which was um, it's an organization for young like people in high school that are people of color so that they can participate in this competition, doing academic, cultural, and technologically activities. They do a presentation and then they can present, and it had all these opportunities to lift these people up within a small group within my community. And it was something that was what I did then, and I kind of did it, and I kind of eventually knew I was burning out, but I knew it was almost done because we had the competition and I pushed myself through it. And now I'm going to take a break from that. And now I'm refocusing my energy in something else. So that's how I do it, is kind of I have like seasons of how I can really throw myself into things. I can learn new things, really
mm,
push myself, but also then take a break, recoup and reload or whatever, and then try something different, the new thing. We're still that still continues to help me learn and develop and grow and do stuff that's meaningful for me. And how I balance that with my again, I'm just a this is probably why I do the job that I do, is I've become very good at making sure I'm managing my time. I've learned
mm,
how my energy level kind of is and how much I can do. I can only do like one thing after work. And I always have to
mm,
go for outside every day. If I don't do those two things, I'm not a healthy person. And then that makes me less able to do the things I want to do, support the people in my life that I care about. And so those I have to prioritize those things. I have to find time to do that every day. And if I don't, I have to make sure I sleep. I have to make sure I eat healthy. If I don't do that, I can't function at the highest level. And I don't always do that well. It's a balance, and balance is all about constantly um, adjusting. I think balance is
mm.
everything staying the same, but actually it's all about adjusting, right? And constantly kind of just tweaking a few things to keep our lives in balance so that we can keep moving forward.
Reminded me of the neural network,
Yes,
adding the different
exactly.
weights.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Once you're in science, you're always thinking about that, but it does help.
Yeah, and somehow certain things strike my mind when we have a conversation with people like this. So
Yeah, no, it's
I'm able to
awesome.
relate it.
Yes, definitely.
I have seen quite a lot of people, and especially this has been among the students where they take up a lot of responsibilities, but then they're not able to full fledged contribution. They're not able to give like their 100% contribution towards it. But then they're
Hmm.
simply behind all of these the so-called opportunities that they have. But so, as you said, it's quite important that you need to pick up those things which you feel is going to help you in your profession, or it's going to help you in your development, and that and those things are really important, and the choice that you make is definitely important. That's what I also feel.
Yes, but one of the things too, I think when you're starting out, you feel like you have to do everything at once, and you don't have to do it all at once, right? You can do one thing, because when you're doing for this beyond again your interview for whatever, if you're going to go on to another college or you're getting another job, in the interview you're telling stories about what you've done. And you can say, well,
Mm.
I was on this board and I was part of this club, but I didn't. If you have nothing to say,
Mm.
it's a good. But if you say, for example, I was in, women engineering, and one of the things I'm most excited about that I was able to accomplish while I was doing it was that I helped bring back the First Ladies of Robotics Luncheon by partnering with one of our other members to be the sponsor for that event. And that brought an event back to a competition that reached 400 young women around Minnesota and around in robotics,
Great.
and allowed them this networking opportunity as part of, and I could talk about that and all the different parts of that and why that mattered. Which
Mm.
one are you going to remember? That I was a part of a group, or that this thing that I did and how it impacted me and how I was able to
Mm.
utilize it, right? So that would be my thing is when you find that you're really not able to do anything fully, it's probably not
Mm.
when I've been that place, I just feel crappy. I feel bad, right? I feel like, oh, I'm failing, I'm failing, I'm failing. That's not a great feeling to have all the time. But if you can
Mm.
focus, like I said, on this semester, this month, this year, this is what I'm going to focus on. These one or two things.
Mm.
This is what I want to accomplish through that. And this is how I'm going to build off of that. So, you don't have to necessarily map everything out and follow the path, but again kind of what you want to accomplish, and then you're open to
Mm.
what else it can bring you. And when you can be open because you have bandwidth, then you can say yes to then you can
Mm.
take it to the next level, right? So, I was doing this, and let me see. For example, I was working on this project, and as part of it, I met this person and they suggested that I tried this. And, is it still
Mm.
part of my path? Yes, I can bring this to this next level. This is someone again, another example. I met with one of our women professors when I was in women engineering, and she was doing her own conference. And I said, okay, well, how can I support you in that? And then that gave me an opportunity to speak at a women in computing conference, and then it also
Mm.
allowed me to make sure that I could organize with other women I knew to have a women in industry panel at that conference, which was again, I was able to take it to that next level, and I wouldn't have been able
Mm.
to do that if I could only do the one thing. I can be a
Mm.
part of the group and I can go to the meeting, but I don't have time to do anything else. I can't say yes. I can't look at other opportunities. So that would be my encouragement: is remember that life is long, and
Yeah, you've just
and
started.
that you can do more by keeping yourself not so full that you can't say yes to the next thing.
Yeah, and I remember when I was when I just stepped into this Power and Energy Society Young Professionals group, our chair Simai was saying, like, if you are able to bring in one successful project, that is more than enough. You don't have to do multiple things during your tenure. Even that one successful project makes a lot of difference.
It does, definitely, definitely, and it can last. It can last.
True, true, and that has a kind of an everlasting impact.
For sure, for sure.
So, Catherine, yours was kind of a non-linear path coming into this renewable, as you said. Uh, so, what would be your suggestion or guidance to the young professionals who are going to enter this power and energy sector, and also some kind of ways with which they can sustain so that they don't drop off after a few years?
Yes, yeah. So like I said, I mentioned, when you actually get your role, make sure you're communicating to the people that are guiding you in that role what you want,
Mm.
because it may not. I mean, maybe you'll get exactly what you want, but I think that's almost sad. If you get exactly the role you want right away and that's where you're going to be forever, I don't know. That's me personally. That may not be the goal. So, but learning and saying, I wanna do I want to get my PE or not? Or I want to go technical, or I want to go managerial. Wherever, you see yourself, talk about it. Explore it. How can I
Mm.
explore? I want to, I'm doing this job, but I would really like to know more about this department. Is there a way that I
Mm.
can either can I just call them and talk to them, or can I maybe do a project with them? There's a lot of opportunities to work on projects outside of your working group.
Mm.
So that was why I said, I was a skating control engineer, but I did this independent. research, or sorry, the integrated distribution plan, and I got to meet, you know, VPs and C-suite people within our company and talk about our strategy and talk about all the different engineering groups and regulatory groups and all kinds of different things. I mean, that opened up the whole world to me within my company by taking on this
Mm.
other side project, right? Or taking on an initiative. If you see something that's broken and you want to fix it, do it. So, like, hey, it seems like, why are we using these? One of the things I did that I was very proud of I mean, this was something that was meaningful to me. We had used the same terminal blocks all the time, and they had advanced what you could get. You could get some with little disconnects that little switch disconnects that you could see, and it allowed people when they were working on a panel to disconnect
Mm.
the power and wire things in without having to unwire, and like in the past they had to unscrew it, remove the wire, do the work, put the wire back on, screw it back on. A lot of extra testing was involved, right?
Mm.
And so this was something that I think a technician brought up, or we had somebody come in. I said, "Well, that seems like a good idea." I brought it to the technicians, I got their feedback, and we kind of revised this process. But that was a really meaningful thing that I felt like I got to do within the company. It brought value to the company, it brought value to my career, and I was somebody who had come up with something and pushed it through, right? And again, had to work on my communication skills, had to work, why is this important? I had to write, figure out costs and all these different opportunities to build skills that necessarily weren't in my regular job. So if finding those, putting yourself out there for those opportunities and talking about them, and again, the things that you want, and that
Mm.
then figuring that out might be the first step, and that you can try something. I know when I came in, I really respected these relay engineers we had. They were so smart, and then I like learned more about what they did, and they were the technical, like, just sat and and did all these models, and I thought, I don't know if that's necessarily what I want to do. And that's okay. That's part of the process. So you don't, again, it is a process. It's learning and changing your mind and figuring it
Mm.
out, because there's just so many cool things that are out there. So that would be some advice I would have. Yeah, that's probably big ones. Those are probably my big ones, is having discussions, putting yourself out there, um,
Mm.
exploring what you want to do, and also that there are more ways to build skills than just at work. That's why I'm involved in all
Mm.
my other groups, is it allows me to build the skills I use at work, on my own
Mm.
time and in my own way. Um, and I think that has helped me do more things successfully quicker in my career.
And I think young professionals have the liberty of changing their career path, because early
Yes.
careers, uh, you can choose whichever direction you want to take your profession to. But once you are experienced enough, then you don't have a choice. You have to stick to what you have been doing. So
Yes.
that's the kind of freedom that the young professionals have, and I think that's what they should be trying to understand where exactly they want their shoes to be.
Yes. And one other thing, is to going back to that point of finding a place that fits for you. So culture, I think, is something that people don't always necessarily, especially your first job, you
Mm.
just want a job. But
Yeah.
knowing that different places have different cultures, different groups have different cultures, and finding one that helps you grow, or makes you, helps you function well, so that you can be successful.
Mm.
Um, and so if you are not feeling comfortable and you're not feeling successful and you're frustrated, that can be part of that exploration too, not just
Mm.
outside of your role, but also outside of your group or outside of your company. Is just know that that every place is sort of different, and look into trying to find a place, because that, I mean, we spend so much of our lives at work and doing our work and with people we work
More
with,
than half.
and if all of that is like, if you are doing that for, you sleep for a third of your life, you work for a third of your life at least, and then you have a third of your life to do other things. So if two-third, one third of your life you don't really think about, and so if you only have these two-thirds of that you're awake, and one half of that is crap. I mean, like, that's a horrible way to live. Like, find ways for that part of your life, that part of your time, to be positive.
It's true. Thanks, Catherine. That was a I should say, very lively, vibrant discussion. But I just noticed that we are a little over
I
time.
know, I
But
noticed.
I think we could still continue the discussion as long as we wish. But then, due to the interest of time,
Yes.
we'll have to stop the official FM discussion here. But we could still connect offline. That's also possible. So officially or formally, I would say, let me take this opportunity to thank you for accepting my invitation to be on this talk show, which I feel is quite important and plays a big role in the lives of young professionals who are wishing to have a career in this field. And this was a very fantastic discussion, I would say. You gave your experience, a lot of insights, and a lot of opportunities. I especially like that opportunities part, and also the kind of advice that you gave. It was really wonderful, and thank you so much for being in
My
this show.
pleasure. Thank you for asking me, and thank you for spending time watching this, everyone.
Sure. So before closing, any final remarks? I know you have spoken a lot, and your mouth must be tired, but
Yes. No, but yeah, just I always tell people to be curious, and try new things and put yourself out there. Never know what you'll find out.
simple but powerful. Thank you so much, Catherine. And to all the viewers, thank you so much for listening. See you in the next episode. Bye bye, and stay safe, everyone.